Rod McKenzie in the basement of the Baylor Hospital, and
Yeah.
Johnny Rosselli is constantly going to the payphone and making phone calls. And during the time that he's doing this, I remember you were mentioning that Johnny Rosselli was agitated. He was kind of nervous during this period of time.
Yes, two things had happened. Well, one, now, unbeknownst to Rod and probably Moran, and who knows, Kennedy is shot, okay, during this time. Also, Johnny Rosselli talked to Delbert Graham on the phone, and Delbert Graham had a heart attack. Now, this is verified because there are people that saw Delbert Graham at this bar that he was at, and he had a heart attack right there on the floor talking to Rosselli. So Rosselli comes back, and he had said this. He said Delbert had a heart attack. And also, Rod said that Johnny Rosselli had come back ghost white, and he said he had a complexion. And he said, we won't be needing your services today. Now, this is my assumption. This is my hypothesis. I don't expect anyone to believe it. I believe that Rosselli knew that the president was probably going to get shot.
All right.
Not that he was definitely going to. Rosselli was there to, quote, direct traffic, because during Rosselli going back and forth, Jake Miranda had said to Rosselli, that's enough of you directing traffic today. That was another quote that was said. Okay, this was very
my word.
And then Rosselli comes back, he's ashen white, and he says, when they won't be needing your service. And the guys get up and leave, and Rod walks out the front door with him. Then he goes back downstairs, and then later on the day, he's got to go up and do his surgery. And he didn't know the president had gotten shot until they're in the middle of surgery when somebody pokes their head in the OR and says, hey, the president's just been shot. And he didn't know Kennedy had died until either late that night or even the day after. Because nobody has cell phones. There's not a television in every bar. Some bars don't have a television or even a radio. So, and he's in the middle of surgery, scrubbed in. It's not like he's having conversations out on the street with people.
And was it also...
According to him, yes, he had put 2 and 2 together and come up with 25. And then he got really scared that night. Because he knew he was involved now. Yeah.
And was it also one of your theories that potentially Johnny Rosselli needed someone to be an alibi to say that to see him not at the scene of this tragedy?
Yeah, there's two schools of thought. There's a photograph out there that shows a guy who resembles Johnny Rosselli on the street. I personally do not believe that is him, but there's some people that do. Also, if Johnny Rosselli is in Dallas that day and he does need an alibi, he always can say, "Look, I was in this downstairs lunchroom at Baylor Hospital the whole time. Couldn't have been there on the street." There are some people that believe Johnny Rosselli was on the sidewalk. There are some people believe Johnny Rosselli was in the sewer shooting at the president, which I don't believe. But there's some people that believe that, and that story is floating around. But I'm 99% convinced Johnny Rosselli was in that hospital the whole time. Yeah, my theory. Mm-hmm. And I have the evidence to back that. Yeah.
Now, we have about a half an hour to start getting into the real details of the killers.
Sure.
And the actual scene in Dealey Plaza. This would be fascinating, I think, for you to start recounting at this point.
Okay. So, we've been talking about McKenzie, and what McKenzie did is a few days after the assassination, he's coming out of his work. He's coming out of that hospital, and he goes to Jake Miranda's steakhouse, and he's going to have a beer. He's going to have some dinner. He's going to probably try to chase down a couple of girls, or 3 or 7. And who's in there drunk and talking loud? It's Malcolm Wallace. So Miranda comes over to McKenzie and says, "Look, Wallace, get him out of here." So Mackenzie says that him and Wallace hop in his pickup truck, which he had enough booze in it to take care of the 56th Infantry Division, and they drove to Fort Worth. And they were thrown out of one bar. And then Wallace says, look, let's check into this hotel. I know these two Mexican girls that run the place, so these two Latina girls. Whether they were Mexican or not, I don't know. They might have been South Americans. And they start partying with the girls, and these guys start having sex with these girls. And afterwards, in a drunken haze, Wallace gets chatty and proceeds to tell Mackenzie who the shooters were, where they were located, and that they had done training together in Red Rock, Colorado.
Oh,
and
my
Mackenzie
word.
records these things on various pieces of paper, stuffs them in his pockets. He's got his pants back on by now. And then Wallace and the girls pass out, and he puts serapes over them, goes to this bar across the street where they got thrown out of, and convinces a guy with a pickup truck to drive him back into Dallas. Pays him $10 or something, I think. And when Mackenzie gets back to his hotel, because he's staying at the La Cabana Hotel, which, by the way, the night before, Richard Nixon shows up.
And Dallas,
Frank
Texas.
Sturgis is there. Yep, Frank Sturgis is at that hotel. So is hit lady Esperanza Martinez. And Frank Sturgis's girlfriend, I can't remember her name right off. I can't remember her name.
Sure.
And that's when Mackenzie starts to piece this stuff together. And this is a story I got from him. So here I want to make this clear right now, Michael. This is not Rod Mackenzie's story. This is Malcolm Wallace's story, where he names these killers in various locations throughout Dallas, Texas on that day, throughout Dealey Plaza. By the way, much of this is backed up in a book written by a guy in Texas, Galen Ross, who names some of these other people as well.
All right, fascinating.
Yeah.
Oh, well, let's hear the story that Mac Wallace, in a drunken stupor now, is telling to Rod Mackenzie. This is fascinating.
Yeah. So Malcolm Wallace says there's various hit teams. He starts out with what we'll call the sixth floor team, where he is there. Again, eyewitnesses see him there. His fingerprint is there. We know he's there. He also lists an American Indian sharpshooter guy named Roy Factor, a woman, a hit lady named Esperanza Martinez, and supposedly Lee Harvey Oswald's up there under a spell. That's what Wallace says to him. And I think Lee Harvey Oswald was there for a short time, but then left. That's my theory. Because he's seen 90 seconds after the shooting in a break room, sipping on a soda as cool as a cucumber. So he couldn't have been up there during the shooting. Not to mention, during the shooting, Lee Harvey Oswald, in my opinion, is photographed in the doorway of that building as the motorcade is driving by.
Right.
Yeah.
So you've just placed at least 3 other people on the 6th floor of the school book depository, but
yes.
From what I remember, you were saying that they were at the other end of the school book depository rather than on the side that has been attributed to Lee Harvey Oswald.
Yeah, that is true, but also there's a lot of confusion there. There's a video that was taken, and it's up on YouTube. You can watch it, where right before the assassination takes place, you can see 3 figures moving in the windows on that floor. Now, it's a big, huge open. There's not separate rooms there. It's a big, huge open space.
Yeah.
Well, if there's 3 shadows moving in the windows, what do you think's going on? You think Oswald's up there alone? No, he's not. In fact, at that time, I don't believe he was there. And if there's 3 figures, that would be Esperanza Martinez, Loy Factor, and Malcolm Wallace. Makes sense to me.
And Esperanza Martinez was there, why? Assuming the other 2 were there as shooters, What was the woman doing?
She was probably okay. Well, she's probably a spotter and a communications person.
Okay.
So if you want an assassination team, what you want to do is have at least 3 people, maybe 4, right? You'd have one shooter, possibly a backup shooter. That's 2 people. You'd have one person as a communications person. If this is a coordinated attack, if they're alone, if they're out there doing a job, you don't need a communications person. But you'd want to have a spotter, and you'd want to have a backup person who's watching the door, looking out for you. Maybe you're in a car somewhere, he's in a car across the street, right? That kind of thing. You want to have 3 to 4 people on the team. That makes perfect sense, right?
Right.
Okay. Now, according to Wallace, there's another team on the 2nd floor of the school book building, and that would be Cliff Carter, who was Lyndon Johnson's personal lawyer, Carlos Marcello, Jack Ruby, and a guy named George Reese, who I don't know anything about. I just know he was involved in the Texas mob at that time. He was considered to be a hitman, and but other than that, I don't know anything about him. And by the way, Reese is mentioned in that book that I was telling you about, the one we were just talking about.
All right.
Mm-hmm. So that's another. Now, Marcello was supposed to be in Louisiana that day in a courtroom appearance, but we're told that by the FBI. Well, the FBI has been lying to us since day one. So where was he? Was he in Dallas or was he in Louisiana? I think as researchers, we need to dig deeper because I don't know where he was.
All right. So we have a team on the 6th floor. We have a team on the 2nd floor. Where else are we talking about here in Dealey Plaza?
Okay. We got a team in something called the alley behind the fence. All right. Where we have two unknown mob-connected guys named Clyde Faust and John Ernst. Again, these are Texas mob guys.
Are we talking the grassy knoll area there where the fence is?
We're talking the alley behind the fence. Yes, in that general area, because it's a little bit big area. The pergola is there. There's some other stuff that's there. There's some shadows and shadowy figures they're photographed there. So we know someone was there.
Okay.
Okay. A Texas oil tycoon named Jack Grimm, very strange character, and a guy named Joseph P. Dugan, Joseph Phineas Dugan, who nobody knows anything about except for Mackenzie, and maybe a couple people in Chicago. He was a cleaner. And a cleaner is a guy who gets rid of dead bodies for you. He cleans up crime scenes, and he organizes assassinations and carry out assassinations for you. So he's like a one-stop shop for all your contract murder needs.
Fascinating.
According to Mackenzie, he had also, with a team of other people, within 48 hours, cleaned up and redid the entire interior of the safe house.
Within 48 hours of what?
Of the Kennedy assassination, within 48 hours. Mackenzie had been moved from the safe house at the time in Dallas to the Cabana Hotel, which he didn't know why. He just told to do this. When he gets back to the safe house, he says the interior is completely different. He said instead of having the tiny little apartments inside the little places, it's one big apartment. He said they got rid of the loft. He got new carpet, new walls, new furniture, new fixtures. He said they even redid the entire bathroom, which he wasn't happy about because he liked the old bathroom better.
Yeah. And by the way, you mentioned also that just before he was booted out of his safe house there were these Corsican guys that showed up.
Yeah.
You want to explain about those guys?
Well, we're going to get to them because I believe that they were involved.
All right, we'll continue on then with the...
is described under the bridge and above in the railroad area. So apparently there was somebody under the bridge and there was somebody above. And Wallace claims that these were the so-called three tramps. Now, we've seen these pictures of these guys. And these